Okay, so if we want to, we're going to try filtering down these acoustic guitars, but I've got them on 2 mono tracks. So if we look at the range window there, with there's 2 mono guitars pan left and right. If I bring over the mixer here, there they are. There's 172 to the left, 172 to the right, but they go out of the main bus at the moment. So if I was wanting to affect them both, I want to put them through a group which basically combines their signal into one channel that I can then put a plug-in into. So if I select them, and then there's a right clicked on them, and there's a menu item, add group to selected channel, and if I click on there, I can then call this guitars, and next to that channel I now have a group. So if I play that little section, I've muted it, 1 second. What I might do is solo these so that we can hear them. Bring my mixer back. So now I've got those 2 channels coming through this group, so that's now the effect. But as you heard, when I pulled down the fader, the reverb send was still sending to the reverb. So what I might do is take the reverb off those 2, so that now I've got complete control. So if I wanted to add the reverb back on, I would just put that send on that group if I wanted to. But it might be that it doesn't really need reverb if we're going to darken it down and turn it into something different. If I go to my favourite filter plugin, which is the Fab filter again, and add that into our chain, often again with the presets thing, I like to start with clean, which is a preset that I made that I know has one filter on that I can then just drag down to wherever I want and move it around. So you can see that's obviously the high frequencies on the right and the low frequencies on the left. A bit like a sort of EQ curve, but it's quite quick and easy to fiddle around with. But that's quite a good starting point to play around with. So if I play a little bit of that, so we can sort of fiddle around with just taking a bit of the top off, or even if we push up the peak, you can get more sort of character or tone into it. You know, I mean, we often have things around there. We like this sort of warm tones thing. I don't know whether,
although it could do with a bit more of what you're doing, like that. Maybe again, it's a bit of a trial and error, isn't it? Because you need to hear it in the track now, don't you?
Yes. Because if I just take the top off, it
sounds a bit muffled.
Yeah, it might not be as dynamic. So we'll unsolo it and see what that sounds like. That with the track sounds like this.
You could almost push that up a bit now, couldn't you? Up.
Oh, you mean the peak? So without the effect, it does come into your ear quite a lot more, and all those little drum things are getting slightly masked by it. If that's a nicer thing. And there is some presets on here. I don't know, the ones that sort of chop things up. Just like to hear one of those. There's a section called arpeggiators, and so they work on having an LFO that changes the cutoff frequency throughout time. So, which is a quite nice effect. I don't know whether it's applicable for this. If I solo it again, you can hear what it's doing. A bit like a sort of gating effect. And if I wanted to grab, because the filter is going from very low to quite high, so if we wanted to take them all down, you can still. Oops, we've stopped again. I don't know whether that's quite interesting.
It's quite an interesting sound, isn't it?
Putting it back in the track.
It's a bit stuttery and staccato, isn't it? But
yeah, I don't know whether it's better just having it.
Yeah, probably would have just
darker.
filtered down a bit. But I suppose that's the thing. Again, there's varying versions of this, aren't there?
I mean, we could change the mix value so it didn't, but then we get the high frequencies that we didn't like. So if I go back, so that's where we were with just having it slightly darker.
Are there any other options with that staccato?
No, there's no other options.
Oh.
Yes, there are lots of options. I mean, there's you can have a little look at. There's some crazy stuff that this does.
I mean, that's quite interesting. Sounds like a slightly like a sequence. It's like a.
Let's hear it in the track. It's quite because it sort of blends in a bit more, doesn't it? I suppose if we didn't want because there's an element there that's still quite bright, we could put another filter on it, or just a bit of EQ to take that filter off that top end. But it seems to sit quite nicely without it. Is it doing that much?
It gives more space in the track, but it's sort of a bit strange. I mean, it's strange, but I like that strange.
Cool.
I don't know, I'm not quite sure about it, but
We could add another filter thing, another node that we can turn into a low pass filter, take any bit of top off it. So we still gain that pulsing thing. Not sure.
It sounds like there's a synth sequencer playing through it. What's that? The cello? That? Yeah, it sounds like a trumpet.
But yes, one of these. This is sort of one of those moments where maybe we just let it run and see, because if you sort of focus in on something, sometimes I think you can sort of just get obsessed with it and you can't sort of work forward. So if we sort of, do we think that's an improvement over what we had? So maybe we could just leave it and then go back to, because originally we were thinking we wanted to add some other drums,
which is where we haven't got to yet, have we?
No. So maybe we'll just leave that in the mix and see how it sits with us in a few minutes. Is that a good idea?
I think so, yeah. I think it still needs some harder drum sounds in it, but
okay. Should we try and find some harder? So